Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Life Around the World podcast. I'm your host Katerina. Today I'll introduce myself, I'll tell you what this podcast is about, and then we'll have our very first guest. My name is Katerina, I'm from Italy, but I have extensive experience living abroad. I've lived in in 6 countries around the world. I really enjoy traveling, I really enjoy meeting different people, getting to know different cultures, and that's actually where the inspiration for this podcast comes from. I realize not everybody has had the opportunity to visit many countries and to live in other places. So I thought through this podcast, through the guests that we'll have, in each episode we'll have a different guest from a different place or who has experience of a different country. So I'm adding this later as I had a bit of a problem with the audio. So I know my voice sounds a little bit different now. Please bear with me. This is my first time doing a podcast. I'm really excited and I'm kind of nervous. I was nervous when I recorded this episode and I'm still nervous now. With all these guests, I really hope we kind of get to have fun together while learning about these new cultures that normally most of us wouldn't really be able to interact with. I hope the guests enjoy themselves and are able to share what they feel is important and is interesting about their culture. But most of all, I hope you guys enjoy yourself listening. And I hope you interact with me, so please, I set up an Instagram account, a Life Around the World podcast, and please just come and interact with me. I'll set up an email as well. Just let me know if you have questions for guests, if you have curiosities for me, maybe anything that you'd like to know, or any comment, any feedback. I would like this to be as interactive as possible. So let's move on to the first guest. So today, for this very first episode, I thought it would be fit to have my husband here with me. Hello, Thokozani.
Hi, Katerina.
How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm fine too. So thanks for coming here.
It's my pleasure. I like it here.
Okay, so you are from Eswatini, right?
Yes, formerly known as Swaziland.
What do you mean formerly known as Swaziland? What happened?
Before it was called Swaziland, and I think that was the name that the colonizers had given the small kingdom. And then a few years back we just decided, why not call it with our local language, which is Swati. And so we decided to call it Eswatini.
Okay, well that's interesting. It doesn't happen often that a country changes their name, does it?
Not very often, but we've seen it a few times with most of the African countries where they change their names from the name that the colonizers left to an African name.
That's true. You're saying colonizers, but what I learned about Swaziland when I first arrived was that it was never colonized. So what's the truth in your opinion?
Well, I agree. It was not colonized. It was a protectorate of British.
Okay, so Swaziland, now Eswatini, it's a very small country, right? What happens when you tell people that you're from there?
People just look at me. It's either they look at me puzzled, or they're like, oh, I've been there in 1980 something, depending on their age. I think I found that most of the young generation may not know it, but most of the older people have been to Africa, and they always tend to go to South Africa for some game drives. But then the biggest game reserve in South Africa is right on the border with Swaziland, so they always drive by Swaziland. Okay. I'll be switching between Swaziland and Eswatini now and then because it's a new thing.
Yes, we switch between the names a lot. It's fun when you give your passport to officials here in Italy. They're always surprised, kind of feeling like maybe it's a fake passport because they never heard of the Kingdom of Eswatini.
That's true. Actually, the first time I came here, I wasted a few minutes while the person who was supposed to stamp my passport had to show it to his colleagues. So he kept calling the next person, "Hey, come and see this passport. Have you ever seen this country? It's a kingdom." There's also the fact that it's a kingdom. It's an absolute monarchy, so it surprises most people that they still exist, because there's a few left.
I feel like things run relatively smoothly.
Yeah, they were very smoothly. With such a small population, it was it's easy to run the country with such a very small population. We are 1.5 million, maybe a bit more, but a lot of Swazis live in South Africa, so
I think you keep increasing the population of Swaziland when you tell people.
So you think I started at 1 million and now I'm at
Yes,
more
over
than
1.5 million. I think you're going faster than Swazi women are able to procreate.
At some point we'll have to check Wikipedia just to be sure.
Well, check now.
It's 1,121,000.
See, I was right, because I keep saying 1 million and you keep getting the number higher and higher. But of course there is a lot of Swazis in South Africa. As we said, they are neighboring countries and they have had long-term cooperation, and
Yeah, Swaziland and South Africa are very linked. They have a lot of relationships. Like if you have the South African currency, you can use it in Swaziland because they are valued at the same rate.
Yeah, so actually the Swazi tribe, let's say, comes from the Zulu tribe, right?
Yes.
I mean, they were one tribe before, and then at some point the Swazis decided to create their own tribe and establish themselves in what is now Eswatini.
Exactly. In Swaziland, we actually speak Swati and English, and both of these languages are also, legal languages of South Africa. One of the 11 that they are, 2 of the 11 languages that they have in South Africa, these 2 are part of now.
Well, Swati is very similar to Zulu, and a lot of Swazi traditional practices are similar to the Zulu traditional practices.
True.
Like also the garments, the clothes, they have different colors.
Yes.
But they are
the same.
Yes.
Yeah, they have the same origin.
Yes. So that's quite interesting. I like how you go to South Africa and there's a different language, but you understand each other perfectly.
Exactly. Even if I'm speaking Siswati or I'm speaking Zulu, the only thing that they will say if I'm speaking Siswati is if they like the accent or they don't like the accent.
Okay.
Most of them like it. A few South Africans say that the Swati language is not very nice to hear.
Yeah, I heard that recently. Can you tell us about your family? Is it a typical Swazi family?
I guess so. I was raised by my mom. My dad was working in South Africa years ago, like before I hit the age of 6. My dad used to come back home when he had like a lot of holidays, maybe during Easter's or during Christmas. He was working in the mines in South Africa, but just when I was about to start school, which is the age of 6, he just decided to not come back home. So I was raised by my mom. She took me through school and until university. So I guess it was a typical African family, except that the father was not present.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I found that that's very common. So in Africa, I lived in Swaziland or Eswatini, and then in Angola. And unfortunately, I found that for various reasons, many families were basically brought up by the mother, often alone or with other women, but the fathers were not very present. Not everywhere and not every family, but it's a tendency.
Exactly.
Yes, between wars and other issues and the problem of having to find a job somewhere far,
Yes, and actually in Swaziland was one of the countries which had the highest HIV rate.
Mm-hmm.
So for that generation, a lot of people died when AIDS first broke out.
Yeah.
There was the antiretroviral drugs were not yet well developed, present in Africa. So a lot of people in that generation died. So it's various reasons that the father can be absent.
Actually, you mentioned something. I think that if people know about Swaziland, that's something they know well Swaziland for, which is polygamy. I mean, you didn't mention it, but it's kind of linked to this, right?
Yes.
People that know Swaziland know about the king having many, many wives.
Yes, that's the most famous fact about it. That in Swaziland, legally, you can take as many wives as you want as a man. You just have to do it the Swazi traditional way. If you do it with the modern way, the modern marriage, then you will get a certificate which says that you're married and you're not allowed to take another wife.
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's like kind of two levels of law, two channels of law. In this case, there's many differences, but this, for example, so if you get married in the civil law, of course you can only get married once. But if you get married with the traditional law, then you can get married as many times as you want, and it's still a valid marriage, right?
Yes, you do get a certificate. It's documented that you are married.
Yeah, so the king has over 15 wives, I think, but the previous one had even more, and over 200 recognized kids, right?
Exactly, he had a lot.
In a population of 1 million people, that's a lot of people connected to the royal family.
Yeah, that's true. But it's not only in Swaziland where polygamy is allowed. I think most African countries allow it.
Swaziland is particular in the sense that it's legal. I think traditionally, yes, in many African cultures it's allowed.
Yes, traditionally, definitely.
But legally, I don't know. In Angola, it's not allowed legally, for example. But I don't know about other African countries. I'll be asking this to my future guests that come from Africa.
Exactly. I hope you'll get a lot so that I can also learn more, because I know a few things about the southern part of Africa, but the northern part, not so much.
Yeah. But it's not so easy anyway, taking more than one wife. Like, when we say that, people think, oh, you're going to get a lot of wives if you go to Swaziland, but it's actually not that easy because you need to be able to sustain the family financially, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Generally, you need to be... It was a traditional thing. So before someone gives you their daughter to marry them, they would want you to be rich, and the richness would be measured with how many cows you have during those days. If you have a huge kraal that's full of cows, then they'll tell you, yes, you can take my daughter, just give me 12 cows, and that's it. The right for females have been getting more and more recognized recently. So that means that everyone has to be treated equally, which is the way that humanity should work anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important point. I was just kind of laughing because I think we're both a bit nervous about this podcast, but it's very interesting stuff.
It is. I mean, in the past, when you take the wives, they would make part of your children. So, like, if I see my friend who has many wives, I'll be asking him, hi, how are the kids? And when I say how are the kids, I mean his wives, and his children. So he was mostly the father, making the leader of the family, making all of the decisions by himself. So I think it was maybe easier to control that way.
Okay, so thank you. It's been very interesting. But now I was curious about how it was for you, and then to move to Angola with me. We moved there, well, on and off from 2017, right? You were there for some months in 2017, and then in 2019 we moved there for a year. We did the whole COVID lockdown part in Angola. How was it for you?
No, for me, I think I loved it there. Angolans were very nice. They were welcoming for me. I think I was lucky because they knew you, so if I come and I'm next to you, I felt welcomed. I felt
Yes,
like I
that's
was part
something.
of them.
That's something I always say, and hopefully one day we'll have on the podcast someone from Angola. But my impression of Angola at the beginning was that they don't trust people they don't know. And I mean, it links, I think, to their history of civil war. So at first I felt a bit like people were a bit cold towards me, but then as soon as they got to know me, they were the most welcoming and most the warmest people ever. And then when you arrived with me, I guess I was expecting them to be a bit cold towards you, but they were not. They were
No.
super open. So that was very interesting to see. And as you say, it might be the connection, like I'm introducing you to the community.
Yes, I feel like that's how they were. Because also, even when I was working on my own, find some of them may have mistaken me for an Angolan, but those that knew that I was an Angolan, it wouldn't be easy for me to make friends.
Yes, I mean, we also had a pretty big network, so I don't think we went to look for more friends, because we joined the dance school, and that had like a lot of young people, and it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely good times.
Yes. I think a big difference in culture between Swaziland and Angola is this party culture. Of course, you have parties in Swaziland too, but I think in Angola they're very serious about it, about the
do.
dancing, music.
I think so. I think the main example that I can come up with right now was how they would print T-shirts. On the T-shirts they would print a picture of whose birthday it is. Like if there was a baby having a birthday, then me as an uncle, I would have a T-shirt with the picture of the baby and then written uncle to the baby, and then you would have another T-shirt written aunt to the baby, which is something we don't have in Swaziland.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a birthday, some people will celebrate it with a
Yeah.
party, but
Yes.
most people don't really do huge parties and print T-shirts and so on.
Yes, and they hire photographers, they hire decorators. Of course, those who can afford it, but even families that can't afford much, like when there's a party, like they really pull together the resources to make it big.
Exactly, exactly. Most of us in Swaziland, if you can't afford a party, you don't consider organizing one.
Yes, and they go on until 7 a.m., even babies' birthday parties, right?
True, true.
And what were some of the similarities maybe that you found between your culture and the Angolan culture?
I think one of the few similarities was how you would have to show respect when entering government-owned building. Like in Angola, sometimes you wouldn't go into a government-owned building wearing flip-flops or a hat. I'm not sure about the hat, but that's how it is in Swaziland. When you go into a government-owned building, you wouldn't go in wearing a hat or looking very informal, because
Yes.
there would be pictures of the people who are in leadership, so the king and the queen mother, and everyone wants you to show respect to the pictures on the wall.
Yes, and in Angola it would be the president and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flip-flops issue was a big issue for me, because in Angola I was going everywhere with flip-flops, and then I would be turned down when I was trying to enter government buildings.
It's very hot in Angola, so
Yes. And you mentioned how some people would think you're Angolan, and some people would realize pretty soon that you're not. And do you
yes.
remember those who realized that you were not, thought that you were from Sao Tome? Often. Remember?
I remember all of them.
Especially there was our moto taxi driver who just decided to nickname both you and me for some reason Sao Tome.
Sao Tome. It's probably because in Angola, most of the black people that you will see, they will either be from Namibia, which is neighboring Angola, or they will be from Sao Tome, because in Sao Tome they speak Portuguese, so it's likely that they would go to Angola.
Well, in Luanda there's also a lot of Congolese and other
Yes.
countries, but yeah, in Benguela I guess those two.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Italy.
Yes. Then we came to Italy.
Yes, actually I think by now it was a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
Right, it's been a couple of years. How has that been for you?
It's been a bit of a roller coaster. It's been lovely. Everyone that is related to you and your friends have always treated me nicely. It's just that I've been missing home a bit, because when we first moved here, I had to stay in Italy for a whole year, and it was during the lockdown, during COVID. So I think I just missed home a lot, and knowing that I couldn't go home made me miss it even more. This was because we were doing the residence permit, and well, to cut the long story short, once you start the paperwork, you can't leave the country and then come back and hope to pick up from where you left off. We actually moved to Swaziland before coming here for a few months. In Swaziland, we had a big house and a garden, so I felt more free.
Yes, that's definitely something I miss a lot. I told you about living in Africa is the space that you have in the nature and the outside.
Yes, but apart from that, everyone here was very nice. The food is lovely, as you can imagine. Everything else was pretty awesome.
And you've been cooking Italian food as well.
Also, I've been learning from you, and I follow some chefs on Instagram that put the recipes there. So I learned to cook some Italian food. I can cook a few dishes.
Yes. What's your favorite Italian food?
I think it's pizza, like everyone else. But to cook, the favorite thing to cook, I think it is amatriciana.
That's very good.
Yes, and carbonara, of course. Carbonara is also very good. I think they are dishes that are easy to cook, and they are also very nice to eat.
Now I'm hungry. And we've been visiting around Italy a little bit, right?
Yes.
Before coming to Italy, what were your expectations? Or, do you remember, if you remember them, or how they changed while you were here?
I think the only thing that I can come up with right now is how I expected everyone to be able to speak English. I mean, coming from Swaziland, almost everyone who is white in Swaziland would speak English, because we had people from Britain, South Africa, or the US, most of the white people that are in Swaziland. So I kind of expected everyone to speak English here.
Yes.
But in reality, no, even today I still meet people who don't speak English. They just speak Italian. So
yeah. But I have to say, your Italian is very good. As is your Portuguese, you pick up languages so fast. And now you're learning Chinese. What made you want to pick that up?
I just fell in love with learning languages. When I first met you and learned Italian, I realized that I have a passion for learning new languages and new cultures. So when I came here, I thought I'm still learning Italian by talking to you and talking to people in the office. So I should pick up another language on the side, and I chose a challenging one. Decided to go for Chinese. Yes.
Okay, and what do you miss most about Swaziland or Eswatini?
That would be the meat.
Yes.
I think we have good meat there, and when we do a braai, it's a serious thing.
Leto, my South African classmate, also keeps saying braai, and I'm like, not everybody knows what a braai is. So what is a braai?
Oh, that's true. A braai is like what's the word in
barbecue.
English? It's like a barbecue, exactly. It's like a barbecue, except that mostly in Swaziland we tend to cook it with the fire, not with the broilers, or I don't know, some of you have air fryers or ovens.
Yeah.
We tend to cook it in a fire, to start a fire and wait until it has all the red ashes, and then marinate your meat with whatever spices you have, and then throw it on top.
What kind of meat do you eat? Do you eat pork in Swaziland?
Yes.
I'm asking, I know, but I just...
Yes, we do. I have actually gotten this question a lot here in Italy, because I think there's a lot of Muslim Africans who don't eat pork, so it's normal for me to be asked that question.
Yes.
But yes, we eat pork, chicken, and beef, obviously.
Yeah.
We have a few here and there. You'll find sheep and goat meat, but the most popular ones are the first three that I talked about. And when you're doing a braai, you will probably you have a mix of the three, and then add some sausage, which we call the braai wors.
But it's really part of the culture, right, having a braai?
Yes, it's part of the culture. When you meet with friends, in town, you will probably go to a place where they'll sell you the meat and show you the fire. You just take the meat and marinate it, go to the fire and cook it yourself, and then they give you pap.
Yeah, what is pap?
It's basically this kind of food that you cook using meal and water. You just
It's flour, corn flour, maize flour. Yes.
Yeah, corn flour is a bit different, but yes.
Maize flour, no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and water.
And water, yes. You just boil the water, add some salt, and then bit by bit you put in this meal.
It's like a porridge. It's quite solid, though.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the English word for it, porridge.
Yes. And we've seen that in other African places as well, but it has different types of flours or different consistencies.
Exactly. In Angola, they had it too, fuba, which was a bit more liquid than what I'm used to. Yes, fungi.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of spices, what kind of spices do you use in your meat?
Well, we just like it spicy, so we like it chili. We had a few spices that have chilies, and I like it spicy, so I'll buy some spices that have a lot of chilies in them, and then I'll buy a chili sauce on the side just to make sure it's hot.
Yeah, and talking about this, do you remember when we were at the bright place in Baban, in the capital, and some people started adding the spicy to the hot
Yes,
stove?
I remember to the fire, and that made everyone cough because we don't put the chilies inside the fire, obviously.
Yes, because then it went with the smoke all around the place, and we were all coughing and crying. It was
exactly.
horrible.
Exactly. We get the chilies already cooked, so that later you just add it to the meat when it's ready, so you don't cook it.
Yes, and there's a special kind of sauce made in Swaziland called archer, right?
Yes, a lot of women know how to make it, and then they sell it. They just make it and put it in bottles.
It's made of vegetables with chilies.
Exactly, mixture of vegetables and chilies.
Do you remember when you made it?
Yes.
In Angola, how was that?
Mine was the best.
Okay. Well, yeah, this is to warn you listeners that in this podcast you'll hear a lot about food, because I have a passion for food and cooking. And you too, right, Thokozani?
Yes, I love food.
Yeah. Well, as a sort of last topic, there's something that, as you know, I'm very interested in general. And I found particularly, well, how do you say, elaborate in Swaziland, is the religion aspect.
Yes.
Do you have, well, mainly it's a Christian country, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But there are so many different denominations.
Yes, under Christianity we have a lot of churches.
Yes, it's, for such a small country, it's so interesting. Like,
yes,
within the same community, like there will be people that are Baptist and people who are evangelic, people who are Catholic,
or Jehovah's Witnesses.
A lot of different ones. And the church is very important for most people, right?
Yeah, it is up to an extent that we had, I think, before the white people arrived, we had our own traditional religion. Mm-hmm. And then when they arrived and introduced God to us, then we were like, we're not going to leave our traditional religion, so we'll do both. So there are people called Zionists that do both. They wear some red clothes.
Yeah, they developed a sort of religion mixing Christianity with the local religion practices, right?
Exactly, where when they pray they will include their ancestors, so that their ancestors will take the message to God and so on.
And we went to one of those services. It was very interesting. They were fighting with sticks, like it was a very different ritual, let's say. Something that actually kind of bothered me and I didn't understand is how in like meetings, like when I was working for the NGO in Swaziland, like every meeting we had to pray, even though, you know, the NGOs didn't have anything to do with the religion. They were not religious NGOs, like, but it always started and finished with a prayer. So and the prayer was very generic again, like, so to not really make it specific to like the Catholic ritual or the Jehovah's Witness ritual. It was like always a kind of generic prayer that anybody could kind of agree with. to God.
Yes, if you go to an event that includes the whole community, then obviously they will want to pray first and in the end.
There's nothing wrong with it, but I'm not used to it. Here in Italy, religion is more of a private thing. So if you go to public meetings, you don't.
No, for us it's very public. Actually, before the missionaries arrived, there's a legend that is told that the king had a dream. The king of that time had a dream that there was a white man who was arriving, bringing with him a coin and a book. The Swazis are supposed to choose the book and not the coin. Obviously, the coin is money.
Mm-hmm. I've heard this story somewhere else. I don't know if in like some similar story. So I'm wondering if it's something that missionaries have been telling all over the world. It's possible.
It's likely, so that we do choose their book when they come with it.
Yeah, of course. Okay, that's interesting. But yeah, as I said, that was not the last topic, because actually I wanted to just mention these rituals that the king participates in, actually is like the leader of, and they're very important, and during the year there's 2 in particular that are super important.
Yes, exactly, as I was saying, that we the ancestors are very important, and the traditions and customs of the country are very important. So during August there will be the reed dance, which is almost the most important one.
What's the name in Swati?
Umhlanga.
Yes.
Umhlanga is reed. When you translate it, the small thingy that grows in the water.
Yeah, like the plant. The
plant, yes. So the girls, it's supposed to be girls who are virgin that go to pick it up and bring it to the king's house so that it can be used to build.
I think it's the Queen Mother's palace.
Yeah.
They're supposed to build the fence around it.
Yes,
every
it's
year.
used to build the fence, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And then there's the Inkwala, where most old people go. It's also an interesting event.
When is that?
That one is around Christmas.
Yeah, so it's that one that where actually the king kind of retires for a whole month.
Yes.
In theory, he or someone sent by him goes to Mozambique to get some of the seawater,
a few people, yes, a few people. But since this is mostly related and linked to some rituals, you can't really know exactly what's going on.
But the umhlanga
yes,
is actually quite well known outside of Swaziland. It's one of the few things that people know.
Exactly.
Where at the end of a few days, where the women from the communities, the young women, virgin women, come to bring the reeds, at the end of that there's a celebration. They dance in front of the king and other important people, right?
Yes, and of course they are wearing the traditional attire, which tends to show a lot. And because they are supposed to be virgins, they don't cover up a lot.
Yeah, so the upper part is naked, and that is shocking sometimes people from abroad.
Yes.
And then there's this idea, when I came to Swaziland, they told me that the king chooses a new wife in that dance every year. But in the end, it's not true. It just so happened that sometimes he chose a new wife.
It's not every year, but if he wished... If he wished to choose a new wife every year in that event, he could do so.
Of course, he can. So that's quite interesting. It brings up a lot of actual issues about women's rights, but also the connection between women's rights or human rights in general and keeping up the tradition and the cultures of a place, right?
Yes, because as you can imagine, since I said that they are virgins, they are supposed to be teenagers.
Yeah, very young, for sure. Okay, well, it's been an illuminating chat. I hope you had fun.
I did have fun, and I'm looking forward to listening to more episodes that are illuminating about other cultures from other countries all over the world.
Yes, we'll have so many, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Thank you, Thokozani, for being here. Nyabonga, as you say in Swati.
Thank you, Katerina Wamugelegile, which means you are welcome.
Subscribe to the podcast. Join us on Instagram at Life Around the World Podcast. I'll be putting some pictures of the brides and of the sources we talked about and of Swaziland. And stay tuned for the next episode coming out next month. Probably we'll have a very interesting guest. Bye.
Bye. Subscribe to my wife's podcast. Bye.